So a sharp decline in voters under the age of 20 on the electoral roll, coupled with a decrease in the number of voters between the ages of 20 and 30, reveal worrying levels of voter apathy, especially among the youth. In the recent voter registration weekend, which the IEC says had a significant number of young or first-time voters, around 13 million eligible voters did not register. Is a lack of youth representation in political parties perhaps a driving factor in this voter apathy? Our next guest certainly does think that in many respects. Bright Hlongwane is the founder and the Secretary General of Youth in Business SA. He joins us now via our video link. Bright, it's great to have you with us on what is an incredibly important story. I mean, do these figures essentially show that a great number of young South Africans don't have trust in the ability of their vote to change their experience of government?
Good morning, Michelle and you viewers at home. Definitely it is the case. Young people are optionless. They currently do not see who deserves their vote. So the best option for them is just to pull out. They don't take part in the elections, in the upcoming elections, because they are not fully convinced on who first and foremost carries their interest at heart. Secondly, who's going to take their interest and who is going to include them in the decision-making process of South Africa, because for the past 27 years, that has been the case.
I want to perhaps just as some context for our viewers, talk about the work done by Youth in Business South Africa. Tell us about the organization and the kinds of conversations you've been having with government.
So basically, the Youth in Business South Africa is a youth entrepreneurship movement which strives to ensure that young people build thriving and sustainable businesses that make a significant contribution in the economy. And we can't do that without the government's buy-in and support. So the Youth in Business South Africa for the past 6 years has been very vocal on ensuring that young people build businesses, young people are active economic participants, young people also take part in the economy as active citizens and as active economic participants rather than being mere spectators.
That's a big ask. It's a big job, isn't it, given the unemployment numbers that we have in our country, the highest in the world. The biggest section of the population affected are the young people.
Definitely. We have written numerous recommendations to the government, the sixth administration, including the fifth. So basically, it looks like they have no youth interest at heart. They are not willing to bring young people to the table. They don't want to even hear what young people's views and opinions on how to better develop South Africa. So it's basically, we are on our own as young people. Hence why we have taken a stand to say, okay, it's fine, we are not coming to the polls.
Sure. Bright, in January this year, you had the opportunity to address President Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC's top six about the role of young people in South Africa in the country's economic recovery. What did you say back then? And, you know, it's been now, say, 9 months since that discussion. Have any strides been taken since that kind of conversation?
You've just made me realize that for the past 9 months, in fact, for the past 6 years, we've been speaking one and the same thing, and they are failing just to implement one thing only. Young people need a national youth fund, which should be the only body that is going to take care of every project that is designed for young people, because the NYDA alone is not enough for young people. You can't allocate 500 million rands to take care of over 10 million young South Africans. We've called for the National Youth Commission. We need a consortium of youth organizations. Youth organizations are scattered around. Young people must come together, speak with one voice, regardless of their political affiliation, their religious, or in their corners. So we want to bring young people together to speak with one voice. Lastly, young people want to have a seat at the decision-making table. Those are the three key things I mentioned to the president and the top five of the ANC, that young people want to have a seat at the table. It's long overdue. We can't be the majority of South Africa because we are not represented in the decision-making tables in South Africa.
And I imagine all the right sounds were made during that discussion with the president and with the top six.
Definitely they were, to a point that even today, some members of the ANC youth task team have continued that call, which was nothing for us without us. I've been very vocal on this call since 2015, and it looks like it's gaining momentum as we are calling for nothing for young people without young people.
So Bright, you mentioned the NYDA. You've talked on the one hand about the need for a youth development fund. You also mentioned the work of the NYDA You've said that that R500 million is not enough to address the kinds of challenges our young people do face in the country. There's also the ANC youth task team that you've also talked about. So there are these various youth-centered, or so they say, organizations that are doing some kind of work in the country. I mean, are they doing enough? Is the work that those kinds of organizations doing even making a dent in the kind of challenges young people are facing?
It looks like they are not, because if you can ask a young person from deep down rural areas in KwaZulu-Natal about the NYDA, they won't be able to answer, because it's centered around the major cities and the urban areas, forgetting that South Africa has a vast majority of young people living in rural areas. Young people in rural areas are excluded in many forms. They are not available digitally. They are not empowered entrepreneurially. So we need to also look at the target market, which are young people in rural areas. How can they develop their rural areas so for them that they cannot migrate to urban areas? So that large chunk of young people in rural areas is neglected in the mainstream politics, in the mainstream business, because we solely think that the only young people that need to be taken care of are those in urban areas.
So this is also something that the President said in the build-up to the manifesto launch, is that he is quite happy with the representation in the candidates put forward by the ANC for these local government elections. Would you agree with that, given our track record in terms of the representativity of young people in government, as you say, getting a seat at the table?
It was just rhetoric. Himself and the entire NYTT are looking at us as young people as a joke. You can't expect young people who are more than 50% in South Africa to be given 25% at the decision-making table. Young people should be collectively saying we want more than 55% youth representation in municipal councils, in provincial government, in national government, because the people who are currently occupying those seats are past the retirement age. So we can't be saying, okay, guys, it looks like you are now at retirement. Can you kindly give us space? No, we have to tell them that we thank you for liberating South Africa. You have done your part. Now give us the baton for us to do our part.
Even the 25% youth that the ANC is so proud of in terms of the candidate list for the 2021 elections. I understand that number, initially, the aim was to get that number to 40%. So are we bargaining here? We're going from 40%. It should be much higher than even 40%, but now we're at 25%?
It looks like. I live by a rule that says never make the first offer in a negotiation. So as they've made the first offer, which is 25%, definitely it will be negotiated down. Previously, the ANC League was calling for 40% in the previous years. What's made them change the tune? Why are they going down instead of going up? Are they thinking that the 25% will be enough for young people? I think differently.
Are there countries that you are looking to in terms of the discussions like the January talks that you had with President Cyril Ramaphosa and the top six? Are you looking at other countries for examples of how they have brought young people to the table in government?
Definitely. Namibia, our neighbor, has a 22-year-old MP, and it also has a 24-year-old minister. Zimbabwe, Mozambique. In fact, out of all the countries inside the region, majority of them either have a young minister or young people in parliament, and those numbers are not below than 50, meaning those countries are taking young people serious, are giving young people the opportunity to voice out their opinions, giving them a role in developing their countries. So ours is very bad because we are in a country where young people are not even seen in any aspect or any facet of society, because there's less to little representation of young people in societies, be it CEOs of private sector companies, be it board membership in companies, both private and state-owned. The young people are nowhere to be found. And what's saddening the most, we have educated ourselves because we were told to go and get educated. We have your masters, we have your honors, we have your PhDs. We are sitting at home with them.
75% drop among voters younger than 20 on the electoral roll. 13 million people who are eligible to vote didn't even register for these polls. Bright Hlongwane, is this the best step to take, to stay away from these elections as young people, to try and get your point across?
At face value, it's not, because I believe that young people have the power to change things. Young people have the power to make things happen. But because we are optionless, so the best option is to say, let's stay away. But going to November, on the 1st of November on elections, young people must critically evaluate all the options they have, look at all the political parties, look at what they stand for, and see if they are not aligned with them. And lastly, young people must not be easily persuaded that saying this 25%, this 40%, this 50% is going to make things happen for you. Young people must look at the long-term objectives of those political parties. If in the long-term objective of those political parties, youth development, youth emancipation, be it economically or socially, is not there, then that party doesn't have young people's interest at heart.
Bright Hlongwane is the Secretary General and the founder of Youth in Business South Africa. Thanks very much for this incredibly eye-opening discussion. 75% drop in young people on the voters' roll, particularly between the ages of 20 and 30. Some 13 million eligible voters did not bother to register. Interesting to see how that translates in terms of the results from those November 1st elections.